Elon Musk, the myth and the man philosophy tube. What do Steve Jobs, Tony Stark, Bill Gates, and Elon Musk have in common? Interestingly, despite their renowned status, they are all known as fictionalized figures in the context presented here. 8 years ago, when I stepped into the role of governor of Judea, I realized we needed to adopt a radically new, long-term strategy to innovate within the Roman Empire. Our mission as Romans is not merely to govern, but to invent, design, and inspire a fresh way of doing things that liberates people from outdated traditions. One of the most rewarding aspects of working for the Roman Empire is that our dedicated team is transforming the world. It is truly motivating to collaborate with some of the most brilliant minds who are determined to reinvent almost every facet of society, from politics and leisure to taxation and defense. The Roman Empire represents the network for the future. When I saw headlines criticizing my decision regarding the execution of Jesus of Nazareth, my mind was focused on one overriding goal: how could I better showcase the immense value that I believe the Roman Empire can provide? The worth of Rome extends far beyond maintaining order and peace. It creates employment opportunities, builds infrastructure, impresses with cutting-edge civil engineering, and ensures robust security. This combination of elements makes the Roman Empire one of the most revolutionary networks ever designed, with the transformative potential to improve the lives of ordinary people in fundamental ways. I have nothing against God on a personal level, however, in this modern context, some traditions appear somewhat outdated. It's worth noting that figures like Elon Musk also represent modern mythology. Musk, born in South Africa in 1971, previously owned a portion of PayPal and is now the CEO of both Tesla and SpaceX, with numerous other ventures in his portfolio. Today, he ranks as the 53rd richest person in the world, with a net worth of approximately $20 billion. On a historical note, Pontius Pilate was indeed a real person who lived during the time of Jesus' crucifixion, serving as the prefect of Judea from AD 26 to AD 36. Interestingly, both he and his wife Claudia have been revered as saints in various Orthodox churches. In many retellings of the biblical narrative, Pilate is often portrayed as a man who seeks to deflect responsibility for Jesus' death, symbolically washing his hands before passing the fatal decree. Elon Musk has achieved what many consider a near-cult status. His visionary approach and innovative spirit have inspired countless admirers. While there is much to discuss about his Twitter presence and personal life, the mythic figure of Elon Musk, as a symbol of the modern technological and industrial innovator, is particularly fascinating. He embodies the archetype of a revolutionary creator, akin to Tony Stark or Nikola Tesla, who dares to break away from conventional methods to forge new paths. Although I enjoy the modern moniker of Tech Dad, there is a reminiscent term from the 1960s for men of this caliber, the comprehensive designer. This person is seen as a synthesis of artistic creativity, inventive genius, mechanical prowess, economic insight, and strategic evolutionary thinking. What is particularly intriguing is how our current understanding of computers, technology, and these comprehensive designers owes a significant debt to the counterculture movements of the 1960s. In his book, From Counterculture to Cyberculture, Communications professor Fred Turner describes two distinct strands within the 1960s counterculture. On one hand, there were the left-wing radicals who engaged in activities such as voter registration drives, protests against the Vietnam War, and the establishment of new political parties. These historical currents continue to influence how we perceive and value the innovators, visionaries, and comprehensive designers of our time. During the 1960s, various groups and individuals emerged, advocating for the expansion of civil rights. At the same time, a new wave of communal living took shape, characterized by ideals such as free love, rock and roll, anti-authoritarianism, and the iconic flower power movement. When you think of the counterculture of the 1960s, these are likely the figures that come to mind. Interestingly, these two movements were not entirely distinct. Many individuals who identified as hippies actively protested against the Vietnam War, while numerous young radicals experimented with LSD. Over time, the communalist movement gained a reputation for being cool, which is why we often associate its aesthetic with that particular era in history. A significant number of those involved in the new communalist and hippie scenes later developed an interest in technology. They began to interact with a new generation of innovators who were pioneering the early stages of computer technology and the Internet. As a result, the perception of computers shifted from being seen as symbols of rigid corporate authority to being viewed as a digital frontier that could liberate individuals. Interestingly, during the mid-1970s, the concept of space colonies captured the imagination of the counterculture. The idea of escaping the constraints of the known world to create a new existence in space mirrored the aspirations of building a commune. The new communalists infused their values and ideas into the teams that were developing early computer technologies. Over time, the notion of a commune evolved from a rural community to a representation of cyberspace, a new, exciting realm that was beyond the control of any single government or authority. By the 1990s, engineers, hackers, and software developers began to be celebrated as countercultural heroes, regarded as the visionary designers of this new frontier, with ambitions to connect the globe and dismantle outdated systems. A notable moment in this evolution occurred on January 24, when Apple Computer introduced the Macintosh, signaling a shift that would make 1984 feel unlike the dystopian vision presented in George Orwell's novel. However, this period also saw the emergence of a backlash, a term coined by author Susan Faludi in her book of the same name. This backlash represented a historical phase where, instead of advancing rights and equality, there was a regression. Rights were rolled back as those whose privileges were threatened by progress fought to maintain their unearned advantages. Faludi particularly highlights the Reagan era as a time of backlash against women's rights, during which many advancements were reversed. Today, we may find ourselves in a similar backlash, with roots that can be traced back to the counterculture of the 1960s. Although the new communalists aimed for an egalitarian society, many of their communes were predominantly inhabited by white, relatively affluent, and educated young individuals. Despite their intentions to break away from traditional societal norms, they often perpetuated conventional gender roles within their communities, leading to the marginalization of women. Furthermore, while they sought independence from the established system, many of these communes relied on external funding or were situated in areas that complicated life for the local impoverished populations. As America evolved, these dynamics gradually transformed, leading to the rise of commercial entities like Starbucks, which capitalized on the cultural shifts of the time. While the new communalists achieved certain milestones, they also faced significant drawbacks that persisted into the 1990s. Publications like Wired magazine extensively covered technology and the comprehensive designers who were mastering it, promoting the idea that they would dismantle existing hierarchies. However, despite its countercultural presentation, Wired's readership was predominantly white and male, reflecting ongoing disparities in representation. The individuals who stood to gain the most from maintaining the status quo, those financially invested in limiting societal transformation, found their ideas reflected in publications like Wired. This magazine openly embraced libertarian ideals, celebrating conservative icons such as Newt Gingrich and George Gilder, both featured prominently on its covers. While advocating for internet deregulation and the uninhibited flow of information, these voices inadvertently paved the way for broader systemic changes. Despite their idealistic rhetoric about empowering individuals through technology, their stance on reducing government oversight contributed to the erosion of worker protections, the dismantling of social safety nets, and the stark economic disparities we now face. Much like the countercultural movements of the 1960s, the tech-centric libertarians of the late 1980s and early 1990s viewed themselves as rebels constructing a radical new future. In reality, however, they remained deeply entwined with existing power structures. Behind the glossy facade of Silicon Valley's innovation boom lay an uncomfortable truth: the physical labor of assembling devices often fell to marginalized groups, undocumented immigrants, women, and people of color, who were excluded from the prosperity promised by this digital revolution. Today, similar patterns emerge. Hazardous manufacturing jobs have shifted to state-controlled capitalist systems like China, where figures like Elon Musk pursue factory projects. This highlights a persistent myth surrounding tech leaders, the idea of the self-made visionary who operates outside conventional systems. In reality, breakthroughs like the iPhone rely heavily on publicly funded research, combining existing technologies rather than springing fully formed from private genius. Many celebrated innovators, including Musk, inherited significant advantages, a fact obscured by the lone genius narrative. These contradictions mirror what philosopher Slavoj Žižek termed liberal communists, a deliberately paradoxical phrase highlighting societal hypocrisy. Imagine trying to merge two opposing ideologies: liberals, who tolerate capitalism despite progressive social views, and communists, who reject capitalism entirely. Žižek's term exposes the tension between wanting systemic change while benefiting from existing structures, a dynamic akin to flirtation. Flirting involves playful ambiguity, where neither party fully commits to their intentions. Similarly, liberal communists engage in a dance of half measures, advocating for social progress without challenging capitalist frameworks that perpetuate inequality. This strategic vagueness protects egos and preserves opportunities, much like avoiding direct rejection in romantic pursuits. To grasp modern counterculture's evolution, we must examine these contradictions and the stories we tell about innovation, labor, and societal change. Let's dive into a bit of a playful scenario. Imagine a situation where someone makes a slightly suggestive comment, and we wait to see how the other person reacts. This back and forth is a form of brinksmanship, a game where each party tries to gauge who will make the first unambiguous move. It's all about who wants it more. Of course, the other person or people involved are likely aware of this game, but it adds an extra layer of excitement. The whole practice of flirting works as long as you can plausibly deny that your words reflect your true thoughts. Zizek points out that many actions rely on a similar kind of denial. For example, wearing a Che Guevara t-shirt that has been mass-produced is, on some level, perverse. Some poor, exploited person probably had to make that t-shirt in a faraway country under terrible conditions for pennies an hour. This entire system goes against everything the men whose face is on the shirt fought and died for. However, if you wear it ironically, you can do so because you know it's bad. You disavow it, claiming innocence. You're saying, I am innocent of this man's blood. I washed my hands of this. The key point is that, like flirting, wearing the Che Guevara t-shirt actually depends on you disavowing it. Pontius Pilate couldn't sentence Jesus to death until he had washed his hands first. The disavowal is central to the whole operation. But you still wear the shirt. Under capitalism, we often focus a lot on people's intentions. You might wear a Che Guevara t-shirt, but you're not a bad person because you didn't intend anything bad by it. You know it's bad, unlike some imaginary person who wears it because they like the pattern. Elon Musk might not always get things right, but at least his intentions are good. Zizek says it's not about what you intend to do, it's not about what you believe in your heart or whether you're a good person. It's about the material effect your actions have on the world. So, let's set aside the flirting analogy for a moment. Are we going to get to the point? Liberal communists are big-time capitalists, millionaires, billionaires, and business owners who simultaneously wash their hands of capitalism through their actions. Take Bill Gates, for instance, a former hacker and huge countercultural icon in his day, now a huge business owner who gives millions away to charity. This is a fundamentally anti-capitalist move because you're giving money away rather than investing it to expect returns. Elon Musk, the CEO of Tesla, gives free batteries to Puerto Rico. Jeff Bezos, the CEO of Amazon, gives millions to medical research at Princeton. And, of course, there's George Soros. I could even name some millionaire liberal communists on the YouTube scene if it weren't for the off chance that they'll be watching now. Don't get me wrong, charity, grants, and batteries can be amazing, changing and saving lives. But in order to give wealth, you first have to take wealth, or, as some would put it, create wealth. Here, we're getting into the deep economic reasons that explain how new profit is generated by the workers. If you're a capitalist, you can throw as much money as you want at a block of wood, but it will not turn into a chair. Investment, 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 you can throw as much money as you like at a sheet of paper, but it won't turn into a book. The key is that the value comes from the labor of the workers, not just the money invested. A raw piece of metal doesn't magically transform into a Tesla. Its value increases only when someone invests labor to refine and reshape it. This fundamental truth applies universally. Workers are always compensated less than the economic value they generate through their efforts. Whether factory employees, robotics engineers, YouTube creators, pub staff, or corporate HR teams, your paycheck reflects a fraction of the wealth your work produces. To claim the full value, workers would need collective ownership of production tools, bypassing hierarchical bosses. This concept is socialism. Under capitalism, however, billionaires accumulate wealth by retaining the difference between worker pay and the market value of their output. Every dollar in a billionaire's account represents unpaid labor. This isn't just theory, it's why the wealthy actively protect their systems. Take Elon Musk, he donates to both major US political parties, which, while distinct, both uphold capitalism. When asked about unions, he notably avoids encouragement, a common corporate tactic. Many billionaires also funnel money through philanthropic foundations, e.g., Gates Foundation, to fund political think tanks that shape policies favoring wealth preservation. As philosopher Mark Fisher observed, liberal communism isn't a progressive alternative, it's capitalism's polished facade. Countercultural symbols like Che Guevara shirts or anti-corporate films are commodified to pacify dissent. Even Tesla's revolutionary image serves as marketing, not genuine systemic change. The tech visionary archetype. It's a sales tactic, romanticizing individualism while obscuring collective labor. Remember, cheering for billionaires won't make you rich. But capitalism thrives on the myth that someday, you could be. Until workers collectively own their labor's value, the cycle continues, whether you're a Marxist, a skeptic, or just wearing that rebel t-shirt. The modern counterculture has evolved to include trans-inclusive and feminist tendencies, as well as the widespread acceptance of lesbian, gay, and bisexual individuals. However, we are already witnessing these aspects being exploited by media aimed at women, primarily to generate advertising revenue. For instance, corporations that participate in the London Pride Parade also sell weapons to countries that use them against LGBTQ+ people. The anti-capitalist elements of counterculture are being stripped away, and what remains is being used to sell products. Just a few days ago, I attended Summer in the City, a major YouTube convention in the UK, where I was on a panel. I raised the issue that the cameras and laptops we YouTubers use contain coltan, a conflict mineral. The extraction of coltan in the Democratic Republic of Congo is causing significant social, economic, and environmental damage, not to mention the exploitation of workers in China who assemble these electronics under terrible conditions. When I brought this up, I was surprised to find that another YouTuber on the panel, who is generally considered progressive and kind, completely dismissed these concerns, stating that they were there to speak for their audience. I responded by questioning who would speak up for the people who do the actual material work that puts us on stage, to which they replied, "Not me." This was not a statement of washing their hands of the issue, but rather a dismissive, blood never hurt anybody. This leads me to wonder, is the same process of counterculture turning into backlash happening to us, to YouTube, and particularly to leftist YouTube? As our channels grow, as we start employing people like research assistants and musicians, as we start selling merchandise and attending industry parties and movie premieres, are we going to end up disavowing our principles and washing our hands of it all? Are we going to wake up one day and not recognize ourselves in the mirror, seeing instead the face of a long-lost friend? Did you hear that there's a natural order, that those who deserve it most will end up with the most, that the cream always rises to the top? Well, I say, if you thought things had changed, you better think again. Bluntly put, in the fewest of words, the rich are still running the world. The working classes are obsolete, surplus to society's needs, so let them all kill each other and get it made overseas. That's the word from the guys running the show. Let's be perfectly clear, boys and girls, the rich are still running the world. Feed your children on crayfish and lobster tails, find a school near the top of the league. In theory, I respect your right to exist, but I will kill you if you move in next to me. It stinks, it sucks, it's anthropologically unjust, but the takings are up by a third. The free market is perfectly natural, do you think that? I must admit, I'm a bit of a simpleton when it comes to understanding the ideal way to organize the world. The moral implications are complex, and I wonder if it even generates any profit. If you don't agree with the current system, you have the right to protest in the streets. Yes, exercise your rights, but don't assume that your voice will be heard. No, no, no. The divine must still govern the world. Masks are still prevalent, and food must still be distributed. Oh yes, the necessities must still be provided. The mosques are still operating, and the old masters are still in control. I'm being completely overwhelmed by the hatred and violence that's happening outdoors.